it's Karen Burniston here with my monthly designer challenge video. The theme this month is 4 seasons, so that is the perfect chance to show the assembly of our tree add-ons die set that fits the fancy label accordion. Now I also needed an anniversary card, got a big one coming up, number 29, so this was a great chance to make that card as well. I will be using 4 main products on today's project. So I've got the fancy label accordion, that's the foundation die. The tree add-ons adds the pieces for that extra pop-up with the trees, fancy solid frame, and then our Seasons Sentiments clear stamps. And then 2 additional dies to customize it for an anniversary card. So our word set 9 love, and then the mini alphabet and numbers. So I based my card off of the one that's on the packaging. So the packaging sample for the tree add-ons is this one, which is the same card I'm making today, just in a friendship theme. So that's one of my favorite things to do, is to take a card that I've already made and I like, and I just have to customize it a little bit and make it into a new theme. I'll start by cutting the tree add-ons mechanism. So I'm going to make a 2-tone background for that. So I've got some blue and green cardstock that I've overlapped just a bit to create 2-tone. And then I'm going to line that die up so that I can see a little bit of that grass color in the base of the trees. You can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die. So I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6 to cut that out. Now, something that I did not notice right now, but did notice later when I was adding the trees, is that my second tree lost its grass at the bottom because I didn't have enough glue in that area. So I'm going to patch that later. But just if you are making this 2-tone effect, make sure that you have a good amount of glue right up at the top of your 2-tone color. We have some new high-quality photopolymer clear stamps with sentiments that are designed to coordinate perfectly with the pop-ups. So the Seasons Sentiments clear stamps has a few choices of greeting that will fit perfectly below those trees. So I just chose the Happy Anniversary. And then on that same stamp set, you can use the Seasons Change and then create different secondary parts of that greeting. So you could say Seasons Change and New Journeys Begin, Seasons Change and Love Remains, Seasons Change and Friendship Remains, or you can do the and your. So in my case, I'm doing Seasons Change and Your Love Remains. I recently got a Spellbinders Scout machine for my smaller dies, and boy, do I love it. It is just perfect, small little machine to keep on the table, and it has that long platform so you can do borders and things in it as well. So I cut out my custom greeting using a label die from the fancy label accordion. I love that with small dies, I can use small scraps. So I found this scrap of a piece of paper that looked like it would be cool for the tree trunks. And then since I know they're all going to be stuck down completely, I can add double-sided adhesive tape to the back of the paper, and then all of my tree trunks will be stickers. Same thing with the foliage. I can just find some little scraps in some autumn colors to make my fall trees, and then kind of do the same thing with the other seasons. Okay, so with the foliage pieces, I'm just brushing the edges with a little bit of coordinating ink. And again, I just went to the scrap bin and found some colors that matched each of the 4 seasons. And then my favorite way to assemble the trees on the tree add-ons mechanism piece is to start with the foliage. And I glue that down and just leave myself an even shadow up at the top around the edges of the foliage. Then I put the tree trunk on. And in my case, there are stickers because I added that double-sided adhesive tape. And then I do the same thing where I just look at the bottom of the trunk now and make sure that I have a nice even shadow around that as well. And then I'm going to repeat that process to fill in the other trees. So starting with the foliage and then adding the tree trunk. And here's where I patched that little bit of grass that was missing below my second tree. There are 4 little decorator dies in the set to be able to decorate the trees for the different seasons. So once again, I like the double-sided adhesive on the back of my colors to make those stickers. With the bird, there is a stencil feature for the eye, and then there's also an open wing, so you can use some ink through that wing to make it 2-tone. And then what I like to do is after die cutting, I just take my black pen and fill in the beak and the legs of the bird as well, or you might try using orange. I'll use the bird on the summer tree. And then there's also a die in the set that will cut 3 tiny hearts at the same time. I like to use those hearts, really on any of the trees, but I'm going to use 1 on the summer tree and a couple on the autumn tree. Another die in the set will cut 3 tiny little flowers, and that has a stencil feature for the centers. So again, making those into stickers is just so much easier because then you can just peel them up and throw them on the tree. after stenciling the centers. And what's great about those decorator pieces being that small is you really can kind of fill up your platform and cut them all together, or even be cutting them as you're doing your tree. So if you kind of think ahead to the decorator pieces and, cut a snowflake every time you're cutting a tree or a foliage, then you're going to get multiples without a lot of extra work. And I wanted 2 sets of every tree because I wanted to use them on the front of the card as well. And for that, I'm just gluing my seasonal tree to a piece of blue cardstock and then cutting out the foliage area of the tree with the square die that comes in the fancy label accordion. And then I'll add my decorator pieces afterward. Turning to the new fancy solid frame, that is perfect for decorating the outer frame of the accordion, and it cuts all 4 sides of the frame at one time. So from one piece of pattern paper, I just chose a wood grain pattern paper, I was able to get enough frame edges to do the front and the back of a 4-page accordion. Okay, time to cut my fancy label accordion pages. I decided to cut each page a different color, kind of matching the theme of the 4 seasons. So pink for my first page, then green for summer, orange for fall, and then blue for winter. So what I want to do first is find the tapered tab on the side of each page and work the fold. And that's what's going to connect the pages together. So I always put the long tapered tab to the right on each page. And I never glue a tab to a tab. I always glue a tab to a page. So now I'm going to use those tabs to connect the 4 pages together. I like a strong glue for this. I'm using my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. We sell both of those items on our website. So just using those tapered tabs to connect the pages. And if I can think ahead to the fact that, when it's going to be a mountain and when it's going to be a valley, then I can kind of attach the pages, sort of enhancing that fold. So that center one's going to be a valley fold. So I'm going to kind of work a valley fold into it as I put the pages together. And then it'll alternate to a mountain fold out here between fall and winter. So I will put that together as a mountain fold. Accordions can be as long as you want them to be. In this case, I only want 4 pages, so I can get rid of that long tapered tab on my final page because I have no page to attach to it. And then while I'm in the business of cutting off tabs, I'll cut off the small tabs on winter as well. But I need the small tabs on the other pages, so I'm not going to touch those. Okay, so now I'm going to add those frame edges, and those easy align corners make it pretty easy to get the perfect placement on them because you just get the corner of the frame edge right to the corner of the page. And if you line up those tips of those easy align corners with the corners of the page, you will get that perfect centering and that little shadow on the inside edge and the outside edge. And then you just go to the next one, and again, you're just looking at the very corner of the page to get those easy align corners put on. That took about 15 minutes for me to add those frame edges to the front and the back of all 4 pages, and I just listened to a podcast while I did it. Okay, so my tree add-ons is going to span page 2 to page 3, so the left side of page 2 to the right side of page 3. And the other half of both those labels needs to be removed. So here on page 2, I can just draw a line from pivot point to pivot point, and if I were to cut on that pencil line, the right side of that label would fall off. On page 3, though, I want the left side of the label to fall off. I want to keep the right side, so I cannot cut it right on the pivot point. I need to leave a little bit more attached. So if I pivot that around, I can kind of use the pivot point as a guide. If I basically put my pencil line about halfway in that distance, of the pivot point, that seems to be a good location. So now I'm going to take my scissors and get it started, little snip. And then I'm going to bring that back where I started again. And I've got that little snip. And all I want to do now is just carry all the way across on that, invisible line, essentially. So that I leave a little bit attached so that the right side stays attached and the left side gets removed. Now over here on the green page, that one's easy. I can just pivot that a little bit. I can just take my scissors and kind of butt it right up to that pivot point and give it a cut on that pencil line. Because in that case, I'm trying to remove the right side anyway, so I don't have to leave any extra attached. And then I'll just erase any remaining pencil line. Okay, turning now to the tree add-ons. I want to work the folds in this piece. So there's a fold up the middle, and I'm going to work that fold in both directions. So I fold it towards myself and then away from myself. Then the center of the trees, I poke that in and work the pivot points out here between the outer trees to be able to have the trees basically go the opposite way as the outer frame. So you kind of have that back and forth fold. Okay, so now this is ready to attach to those pages, but I have to pay attention that I don't put glue where the tree hole is. Basically inside there, I wouldn't want a bunch of glue on the green page where it would be sticky underneath that open area. So what I like to do is just take my glue around the perimeter of the page that I'm sticking the add-ons to, and I just avoid the center section completely. And then if I just turn that, it's probably easiest just to turn it so it's vertical. And then I can use the edges of the add-ons to line up perfectly with the edges of the label until those are attached to each other. Okay, and then the right side of the trees is going to come over here and attach to the orange page. But once I do that, I can't flatten this anymore for decorating. So I'm not going to attach that yet. I'm going to leave that in that nice flat position so that I can do some additional decorating of my other pages before I do the final assembly. So just back to that fancy label accordion again to get some labels to attach to that page 1 and page 4. So on the big wood grain ones, I had to use the page itself and just trim out the label to fit the page. But then for the brown one and the one that I've already cut the seasons change, those are just decorator dies that come included in that set. And I'll go ahead and get my front decoration ready as well, which is those 4 square trees that I cut earlier and then attaching them to a slightly larger brown label out of the fancy label accordion. So that's just going to be ready to go once I get the assembly done to glue to the front of the card. And then for a secondary greeting, I'm using our word set 9, and I've cut it out of brown and out of green, and then added a little ink to the green one. And I'm gluing those two together, slightly offset on the diagonal to make a drop shadow. Okay, so now I've got my inside decoration done, so I can work the 2 folds on my orange page because I don't want to cross those with my trees. I want my trees to just follow the contour of the label itself. And the adhesive needs to go on the orange label because I want to avoid the center area where that tree hole is. So adding my glue and then just bringing the tree add-ons across and into that glue and just using the shape of the label to perfectly align with the tree add-ons. And the big outer pages of my accordion, those are going to bend as a valley fold in the back, to allow that tree add-ons to come across and into that adhesive. All right, so now my center pages are assembled, and now I just need to connect them to the outer pages. So it's those little small tabs that do that. So on the orange page, I need to add a little glue to my 2 tabs, and then I need to bring the Love You label over and into those 2 tabs adhesive. So I'm just going to pinch that for a second to let that set up. That will end up being a valley fold between those 2 labels, and sometimes those little tabs do pop off, and then you have to kind of go back in there and pinch them a little bit more. So take your time with the small tabs when attaching the first page to the trees and the trees to the 4th page, just because they're valley folds, so they need a little extra time. So glue on the 2 tabs from the Seasons Change label, and then just bring that over and behind the trees to attach those 2 pages together. And again, I'm giving that a really good pinch because that is a valley fold. Okay, and then to train this to fold up, what I like to do is just grab the 2 outer labels and then just bend those valley folds and start letting the accordion kind of collapse into that closed position. And now would be the time that maybe one of those little small tabs is going to pop off and I'll have to go in there with my glue and fix it. But once everything's all set up, I've got this ready to go. I just need my front decoration, which is going to be the 4 trees. So that'll glue to the front. And then I have to decide if I'm going to do anything on the back. So one thing that I liked about this design is that I had that light blue on the back that I could write my personal greeting. But I don't super love that I've got those orange tabs visible. So what I did on the inspiration piece is I just used the page itself to cut a label that had the large label nested inside, so that I essentially just made a frame that would fit that page. That kind of adds some visual interest as well as covers up those orange tabs. So I'm just going to copy myself and do that again, leaving the center section open where I can write my personal greeting. Okay, my card is essentially done. Just one last little touch. I thought I would add the number of our anniversary. So this one's number 29 for us. So I used our mini alphabet and numbers to cut the number symbol, hashtag, and then the 29. So there it is, my finished anniversary card, a whole month early, which is unheard of for me. but I will just use an A7 envelope to present that. So that accordion ends up being about 4¾ inch square when folded up. So every month I do a new video for our designer challenges, and when they are for a designer challenge, there is an associated blog post. So the link to that blog post is in the description box below this YouTube video. And on that blog post is where you're going to find links to all of the wonderful seasonal inspiration by our very talented design team. So check it out, and thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can purchase these dies as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.